Welcome back to the Star Wars Newsnet YouTube channel. It's part 3 of the Star Wars movie slate breakdown. Part 3 of 3. We're going to be talking about Dave Filoni's Heir to the Empire, for lack of a better term, name. This movie is seemingly several years away, but it seems like it's going to be movie number 3 on the list. Again, we don't know about the Dawn of the Jedi movie. Obviously, we don't even want to get into the weeds on all the other random movies that are supposedly happening at Disney that I never think will actually see the light of day. But once again, I have the man himself, Miguel. We're recording our 3rd episode, tonight. So for people, when we record all 3 of these in the same day, just 3 different parts. So May 13th is when we're recording this. So if something major drops before this comes out, just know that we can always add to this later. But right now, it's May 13th. And this movie seems like it's forever away, and there's a lot of things that have to happen first. But, Miguel, let me ask you this. Where does this movie rank in terms of your interest level in this? Let's just go with the 4 main movies, the 4 main titles that have been thrown out there. Ignore some of the other stuff that supposedly exists.
Out of 4, I would say this is 3.
3.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this is above Mando.
Okay, this is above Mando.
Just because it feels like more special and also bigger.
It's a little bigger. Yes.
Yeah.
It definitely feels like a larger scale. Obviously, so this movie is not anything like Mando and Grogu, which we know is, this thing's about to get cranking. We're about to get started on this. And with Rey, it feels completely different from that as well. I mean, we have, writer, director, and lead actor, everything's all in the mix there. It seems like that's getting the ball rolling. The weird thing with this movie is that we know Filoni's directing it. We know most of the characters that are probably going to be the major players in this movie. We just have no idea necessarily when exactly this movie might come out. I'm going to ask you in a minute, what your best predictions for that are. But I think let's go ahead and start this conversation, not even about the movie itself, but let's talk about what are the projects that need to come out before this movie, is going to be released, because this feels like this is the culmination event of all of the Disney Plus workings. So if I miss anything, let me know. Skeleton Crew, obviously is coming out. Ahsoka season 2 needs to come out first. And then do you think a Mando season 4 will come out first, or do you think that doesn't matter in terms of the Filoni movie? And am I missing, is there a 3rd show that needs to happen before, this movie that they've talked about, or am I missing anything there?
Not a show, but you're missing Mando and Grogu.
Oh, okay. The Mando, yes, of course. The Mando Grogu movie definitely will, that comes out 26, that needs to come out. Okay.
So the way I'm looking at this,
yes.
Yeah, the way I'm looking at this is Skeleton Crew is in December, Mando and Grogu is May 26, and Ahsoka season 2 is gonna be right after Mando.
Mm-hmm. You think same year, right after Mando, or okay? So Mando season that's gonna be such a busy year for Star Wars. Mando season 6 or Mando Grogu in 2026, and you're thinking Ahsoka season 2 is gonna follow probably in the fall. And then that'll lead into the...
Don't know about the fall, maybe July, maybe August.
Summer,
I think it's going to be the bridge in between both movies.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so that puts, Filoni movie, you're thinking what? 2027? 2028?
So this is what it gets interesting for everyone, and probably everyone at Lucasfilm.
Mm-hmm.
So right now they have a third. They have 3 movies dated, right? So 3 slots on the calendar set, which are May 22nd, 2026, which is confirmed to be Mando and Grogu. They have December 18th, 26, which is unknown, but we assume it's going to be the new Jedi Order movie. Again, like we said last week, there are some reports out there that maybe Dawn of the Jedi comes in before New Jedi Order, which I doubt, and mostly because I just don't think it's possible for James Mangold to have a Star Wars movie come out by December 26th today. He's still working on the Bob Dylan biopic, and there's not even a script for that movie, and that movie would have to start shooting top of next year to come out in late 26. So that's basically where things stand right now. So if they're doing 2 movies in 26, it's probably going to be like the new Jedi Order one if they can get their ducks in a row. So what happens next? There's a third movie dated for December 27, which is like the December 17th. But I have a very hard time believing that Dave Filoni doesn't want to push it up and have his movie come out on the 50th anniversary of Star Wars, which is May 2027. That just feels right for that, but it is going to be like very hard for him to figure out the schedules to shoot Ahsoka and his movie back to back, and then have it come out by then.
And then you're also talking about 3 Star Wars movies coming out in one year.
Yes, which is also concerning all around, like concerning for Disney because they're possibly afraid of that, and also for the audience because they might like tune out at one of these. Like we're not used to this. Like if this was Marvel, that'd be okay, but this isn't Marvel. This is like Star Wars, and we haven't had a movie in so many years, and now they're gonna have like 3 in a row. That doesn't really line up.
Do you think pushing to December of 27 would make that a little easier? You could still have the whole because it's still 50 years because it's still this 2027 tie in,
so
and
possibly
that gives you at least a full year since the Rey movie.
Yes, so I think that's like the realistic option, whereas Filoni's like dream, I would imagine, would be like May 27. But the realistic option is December 2027, which does make sense when you consider like the calendar. So Ahsoka is going to be shooting either late this year or early next year. That's probably going to be so Ahsoka season 1 was from May until end of October, early November. So that's like almost 6 months. So maybe like the first half of 2025, it's going to be like Ahsoka season 2 shooting, maybe a bit later than that if he can't figure out the scripts before then. So what happens with the movie then? Like, does he have a script by the time Ahsoka starts shooting? Does he write it while Ahsoka is shooting, or does he wait until the beginning of the 20? Let's wait until finishing Ahsoka and then shooting the movie at the beginning of 26 with the script being done while he works on Ahsoka's post.
Do you think he has kind of an idea now of the whole narrative that he wants to tell with all of this? You kind of know, you think he knows everything about like how we're going to get there. So my question then would be, all right, so we have obviously Skeleton Crew, we mentioned Mando, we mentioned Ahsoka. How concerning do you think it is that this movie is going to be a culmination event of essentially 3 different shows?
How concerning for who? For the audience?
Concerning
or
for
him?
like Disney, like, and for Filoni, like this is his feature film debut, and you know you're asking audiences maybe to buy into multiple shows on their subscription network to understand what might be going on in this movie. I think there is a way to pitch this movie to people who haven't seen some of the shows. I think that there's an easy way to pitch that, but generally speaking, there's gonna be people like, I haven't seen all of these things. Like, what's Skeleton Crew?
Wait, now you have me intrigued. What is the way?
I think that, and this is not the way I would want to do it. I think that if you put some Imperial suits on screen, you have stormtroopers, you can have like a trailer that says something like "From the ashes of the Empire, one last threat remained," and you show the Falcon in a trailer, and you have some lightsabers that show up. You don't even need to have faces with those lightsabers. I think you might get people intrigued because it feels Imperial. It feels like something new to them that if they're not following that story as much, and then you build up enough time for people to be invested. The problem with that to me is, I think the problem with doing that is it feels like you're just going to nostalgia bait people into going and seeing a movie like, oh, the Falcon's in this movie, like that's why I'm going to go see it. Or they throw CGI Luke or like something on the trailer to get people interested in seeing it. And I don't want this movie to turn into the CGI Trio Fest and focusing on the Falcon and focusing on characters that have been around for 50 years. I would rather this, actually focus on the characters that we've spent the last decade, actually investing in. I just wonder how easy that's going to be when you're talking about, TV shows and multiple TV shows at this point.
I think they're going to have like a very good test of where things stand with Mando and Grogu.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because Mando and Grogu, it feels like the small time version of that problem, right? So this is going to be like not the culmination, but this ties directly into 3 seasons of a TV show. Whether that's the case with the story or not, that's the way it's going to feel for the audience.
Mm-hmm.
That there's going to be a trailer in front of whatever movie, and
right.
they see, oh, that's Baby Yoda, but do I have to see like the 3 seasons of Disney Plus content that there's out there, or can I see it directly in the movie? So there's going to be like a litmus test for that.
I think there's a little more buy-in I think there's a little different with Mando and Grogu for the general audience, though, versus like, say, Thrawn.
Yes, maybe so, but we don't even know that Thrawn is not in Mando and Grogu. Like, maybe he is. Maybe.
Gosh, I hope not.
I mean,
I know
we can debate that.
He will be. Yes.
I don't. If done correctly, I don't mind. Like, I also don't like the feeling of Mando and Grogu feeling like a very contained story. Like this could have been a shorter episode of a Disney Plus show. Like I also want like bigger stakes. I don't want galaxy-ending stakes, but yes, I can understand like them doing something that feels big enough and also teasing like what's next for these characters.
Okay, like that's fine.
So I do think that it's going to be a good test for that, and yeah, that's going to be like you see the box office receipts for that movie, and then you see okay, we had like one show to tie into that movie. Now we have like 3 or 4 of them. What are the chances here? I do think that they're gonna do fine. Like we're so removed from this that it's impossible for me to say that they'd be happy with this figure for global box office. But I don't know. It just feels that they're gonna be fine. Like, and again, like we're what, at least 3 years and 3.5 years removed from this. Like Hollywood in general is gonna change so much that we don't even know. Like maybe what feels like fresh now, it's gonna feel old by then. So.
That's true. I guess there's just some concern on that front. I wonder, and there's also the concern, we could talk about this. We talked about this with Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy and her lack of experience in terms of feature films, and the same broader concern exists for Dave Filoni. Like this is his first, test at a giant feature film. We have seen him, you mentioned in our last episode that he has experience though with narrative writing. He knows how to tell a story. We've seen him tell Star Wars stories for what, almost 20 years now. I mean, we're getting close. So audiences are very familiar with that. But doing a culmination event of multiple shows and a feature film on the big screen, presumably during the year of the 50th anniversary of Star Wars, maybe the next year, we'll see. That's much different than, giving me season 3 of Star Wars Rebels.
It is like, in terms of my own excitement, I can see the argument why I wouldn't be as excited. I do have faith in what they're doing. Like, I think Filoni took the necessary baby steps to now get into this larger world. Like he directed a few episodes of Mando in season 1, then an episode of season 2 that felt bigger and also like tied directly into his sensibilities. And then he did, a few more episodes of Boba Fett, and then he like got the promotion to do his own show, and then and now it feels like the right time for him to do a big Star Wars movie. Like, so I'm not personally concerned about that.
Okay.
And there's also like thing to consider, like in terms of like general movie going audience, like for those who don't know who Dave Filoni is, they're not going to care that he doesn't have the experience. Right. And for those who do, like Lucasfilm can market the hell out of this movie as like Filoni's, big present for his 20-year commitment. Like,
they could also market it just as George Lucas's,
exactly,
apprentice. Like, this is almost like a direct passing of the torch, you could even say.
In terms of like PR, I'm not concerned about this movie at all. Right. I think like they have, like for hardcore fans, they've already sold tickets, like I'm not concerned about that at all. And in terms of my own thoughts, that's exactly where I stand. Like I'm not concerned about this. Are you? By the way,
I'm not concerned about. So if this movie was coming first, I wouldn't be concerned at all. Like if we knew that like Mando season 4 was happening instead of a movie, and then Ahsoka season 2 and Skeleton Crew, and this was the first Star Wars movie that's coming out, I wouldn't be concerned about this movie at all. The thing that concerns me is all these shows culminating into a movie that takes place 2 movies after these shows are assuming come out. Like it's like the 3rd Star Wars movie in a year and a half. Like I just wonder if at that point will we still be as invested in the Mandoverse and in all of these things? Because we've talked before about, I feel like some of these stories have dragged out a little too long already, and we still have Skeleton Crew's coming out. We have to wait another couple years for Ahsoka season 2. We have no idea what's going to happen with Mando and Grogu. And I feel like all those things are going to tie directly into what they're doing in this movie. And I'm just wondering at some point, will there be a point in time where fans are just a little burned out on some of this stuff?
I think those are very fair concerns. They just don't feel like something related to Filoni being inexperienced,
Right. I don't, because, well, in terms of the experience, I don't have a lot of concerns in terms of, I've always been a big Filoni person. I think that the only thing I've said with Filoni is I think he could benefit from like a greater writer's room. I think he does a really good job with the big picture. I think he does a great job with the overall narrative, but the things in between I think are a little clunky. But with a big feature film like this, I'm not really concerned about that too much. I think they're going to have a pretty substantial team around him to help fill in those gaps. Like I'm not really concerned about that particular aspect.
Like that's exactly how it felt about Tales of the Empire, right? So a lot of those episodes felt like really nice log lines or summaries, but maybe extend into like a 15-minute short. They didn't feel as compelling,
right?
And I think that's how like he usually navigates. Like Ahsoka felt like a very good, like the summary for Ahsoka is like feels like pretty good, but when extended into 8 episodes, I thought it was like very very thin, very like it didn't feel as climactic as I would have hoped for an 8-episode series culminating all of these the animated shows and all that. Like, it felt like a search and rescue party. And
yes, and I don't want to get too deep into Ahsoka because but there were things about the direction and like some of the writing that bothered me, just in terms of how different conflicts were resolved and how different arcs were met. Like, and it felt like if there was other people in the room that were key voices in terms of how we're going to get from point A to point B, which I think point A and point B are great spots, but I just was a little concerned. But I think with a movie, just having more people around, I think there's going to be more voices in the room that will help, because I've never doubted the vision that exists. I guess I just have been a little bit, and I love Ahsoka. It's like my favorite character in Star Wars, and I loved most of that show. I think what just has me a little more concerned is how I felt leaving that show was not how I was hoping. Like I felt like a little bit underserved and underwhelmed leaving the show, when for most of the show I was like exponentially like getting more and more invested, and I left kind of like and that kind of gave me this weird taste in my mouth, like going forward with this universe, this Mandoverse Filoni universe that's existing, that's going to culminate in the Heir to the Empire. And a lot of this is going to be contingent on what they do with Thrawn in the future, and what that looks like, and where he shows up, and how they build him up for the general fans. But ultimately, like we've said, like I'm not concerned with the narrative where we get. It's the stuff in the middle that I'm going to be a little bit concerned about. I feel like if I had to guess right now, just based off if Filoni was doing this all by himself, I would be immediately invested in the beginning of this movie. I would think it's great. And then we finish the movie and I'd be like, I love that we got here and I love how we're going. But what happened in that hour in between felt a little bit weird. That's kind of where I would be at right now.
I mean, that's also like in the school of George Lucas, right? So he was excellent at picking out great moments, but not putting the things together very well to get there, like from point A to point B. Yeah, I think that's also a fair assessment of the prequels.
Do you think that we are going to see the big three, Luke, Leia, Han, on screen in this movie? And do you think they will recast, or do you think it's going to be completely the, like, you know, face, I don't know, like the face swap technology, CGI stuff that they did with Mando and Book of Boba Fett?
Yes, I do think they will be there. I am leaning towards recasting because I do think they're hearing the complaints.
Okay.
I do think that Filoni is Filoni, like he wants them there. But I also think that they're hearing the complaints, and that it's well, and this also like depends on where technology is at by that point. Like, and with AI evolving as much as fastly as it is right now, like in a few years, like probably we're not even gonna notice it. So maybe it will be fine with CG Han, but yeah, I don't know. I think if they were doing this today, I think they would recast.
Okay. Do you think this would be a little weird? Do you think that they are going to be the main figure points in the movie? Like these are going to be, they're going to have substantial roles, or do you think we're talking very, very limited? They might come in for a big finale or like a cameo in the middle or something like that, or do you think they're going to play like these really large roles in this movie? You had to guess.
Let me think of Star Wars. Let's say something like Yoda in Attack of the Clones.
Okay.
Where he's there, he doesn't have one of the main roles, but whenever he's needed, he gets like a big moment. I do think there's going to be like a money shot of the three of them coming together for the first time. Yes.
Do you think that if Luke were to come in at the end with some big thing, or do you think, or all three of them come in at the end, do you think that takes away from, say, like the characters they've been building up, assuming Mando and Grogu are in this, but like Ahsoka, Sabine, Hera, Ezra, these characters that they're going to be building in, do you think it takes away from those characters and kind of almost not a slap in the face, but it almost does a disservice to the work that they did building up those characters? Or do you think it more like supports them because these are the icons and it gives more credence to the movie with them being there?
Well, I think of Filoni and what his sensibilities are. Like he loves his characters. Like whenever he has a chance, he will put Ahsoka.
He finds a way
wherever he can. Yes, so he will find a way to pay justice to her and to Sabine, and like he also created Mando. Like that's also yes, that was Favreau's speech, but Filoni was involved all the way in that show. So that's also like his baby, and Grogu as well. So I do think they're going to have like the bigger focus. And again, like think back to Yoda in Attack of the Clones. So he's there and he has some big moments, but the you don't leave Attack of the Clones thinking of Yoda's arc,
Right.
or maybe some of his fights, but not necessarily like that was Yoda's movie, you know.
That's fantastic point. I would agree. I just get a little bit worried about just the gravity of those three. If they come in and save the day at the end, does that take away certain aspects from other characters, things like that? I'm not really concerned too much. I just don't want them. Does it mean I hate Star Wars that I don't want them in the movie really at all? Like more than just like a brief shot here or there. Like I just don't. I want, and we've talked about this. I want Star Wars to try to move beyond those characters, and not that they can't be in the movie, but very, very limited, because I am not a fan of like the CGI stuff. I think it's weird. You have Alden Ehrenreich sitting there that you could bring in as Han. I think most people would accept that, and I do think most people would accept recastings of those characters at this point. But it's a whole rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, yeah, I mean, Alden is like right there, but he's getting busier by the day. With he had a great year in 23, so maybe he doesn't need it right now, and he's.
That's why I'm saying it'd be weird, like if you did recast all three, but you have a third guy playing Han instead of Alden. Like that's where
if they are recasting, I think they will use. They will try to use Alden. Yeah, and I think that's like your first call. I don't think you're recasting Luke or Leia first. I think Alden is your first call, and if you can't get him, like maybe you don't even.
You just ignore it all completely. Okay,
maybe I don't know.
So moving on a little bit here, Brian and I talked about this recently, and I want to kind of get your pulse on this, because I think this is going to become the big talking point for fans leading up to this movie, and we're gonna find out more in Ahsoka season 2 and to the Mando Grogu movie, I'm sure. Like Thrawn's purpose, like what is like his overall like goal and purpose? Because Ryan and I got into this, and he and Jay are kind of in this point of, we want to see Thrawn building up to trying to bring Palpatine back with this project Necromancer, and like that be like his end goals to bring Palpatine back. And I'm kind of in the standpoint of we do not need Palpatine being like a focal point of like a plot line again for, the 19th time. I kind of wish that why can't like Thrawn in his own should be enough to carry this. Let's just leave the Palpatine stuff alone and do this. And I think that as this movie gets closer, that's going to become more of a talking point, because we know what's going on, and we know the stakes that are going to exist. And so just from a story perspective, what are your vibes on, like, what do you think the best way to handle like the villain situation in Star Wars might be? Because I think that's the big concern even around all three of these movies, is what is the villain going to look like for both Mando Grogu, this movie, and the Rey movie.
Yeah, so you and I agree on like most things here. Like I also want to move on from the Skywalkers and the whole like episode 1 to episode 9 timeline.
I hear a butt coming.
What?
I hear a butt coming almost.
No, not really. And yeah, I also agree with you that I think you had like some a great conversation about this on the live show the other day, that if this movie is going to be once again about bringing Palpatine back, why are you even doing the movie? Like, and just because of that, and I don't think they're gonna. I don't think that's going to be like the focus of this. I think there will be something. I think Palpatine will be a part of it, but not necessarily like actively. Like maybe Project Necromancer is mentioned at some point, and it will, because otherwise it will probably feel like disconnected from everything else that's happening in Disney Plus. But Filoni has said that this movie is going to be centered around a what was it? A galaxy altering event, like
Yes.
something. No, sorry, an era defining event.
An era defining. Okay.
Yeah, which in and of itself like feels weird because like we know what happens later. So
And we know the next era.
yeah, how big of an era defining is this going to be if we know what happens like 20 years later and it doesn't even get mentioned in the sequels? Like there's that to take care of. But I don't think this era defining event will be bringing Palpatine back.
Right.
I really don't like, and not even like creating Snoke. Maybe we will have some Easter egg on Snoke or some like a possibility for a future tie-ins into like the creation of Snoke, but I don't think it's going to be related to that.
Okay.
That being said, I have no idea what this era-defining event will be.
And there's a lot of storytelling that has to come together before then. And so a lot of people are, we've had this discussion before, and I've talked about this a few times. A lot of people are wondering, like, oh, Ahsoka season 2, like, is she going to be in this movie? And I want to know, do you agree with me? Like, there's zero chance that Ahsoka is not like on the poster for the Heir to the Empire movie. I think there's like zero chance that she's not on the poster. Like Rosario Dawson's gonna be there. She's gonna be like a lead in this movie.
Yeah. I think there will be like 3 to 4 leads here. I think Mando is going to be a lead. I think Ahsoka is going to be a lead. Maybe Ezra. I think Ahsoka season 2 might position Ezra as another like huge player in this era. I don't think anything from Skeleton Crew is gonna carry over that much, but maybe Jude Law's character, whoever he's playing, might have like a big role. But yeah, like if I'm thinking of the poster for this movie, like I'm thinking of Mando, I'm thinking of Ahsoka, and I'm thinking of either Ezra or Sabine or both.
So we have the floating heads poster once again,
exactly,
and we're gonna get floating heads. How many faces can we fit in? So we got Thrawn like in the background. They're gonna do like the floating heads and then like the looming silhouette of Thrawn behind them, I'm sure. And then we'll have Ahsoka there. You got to throw in Sabine if she's the apprentice or whatever. You'll have. Do you think there's any chance? Let's see. We said Ezra, Mando, Grogu. Let me ask you this: do you think there's any chance he has been making his return in Star Wars? Hayden has. How likely do you think they bring Hayden back as a Force ghost in this movie?
Not for the poster.
Not for the poster. This is just for the movie. Okay. For the movie, do you think?
Yeah, for the movie, yes.
Do you think he'll be in it?
I do think he will be in season 2 of Ahsoka as well.
I do.
Not like, again, a poster role, but I don't think he will be like having at least as many appearances as he had in season 1.
Okay. So you think, like in season 2 of Ahsoka, you're saying, like you think he'll have that?
Yes, because Ahsoka has reconnected with him, like as we saw in the last episode there, like she now can see him as a Force ghost.
Yes.
So I can't imagine that's going to be a one-off. Like there's probably going to be like more conversations between them.
Okay, so you throw in a Hayden Christensen in the movie as well, assuming, and Hayden seems he's super excited to put the robes back on and come back into Star Wars, which is exciting for everyone, I think. So, okay, that movie, we got all the floating heads, we got Thrawn in the background. How confident are you that they stick the landing on all of this? Because there's a lot of moving parts until this movie comes out, and then obviously the movie has to, be received well. And certainly like Lucasfilm hasn't given people,
this is
a
like
lot
asking,
of degree of trust.
Do you think episode 9 will stick the landing after watching episode 7? Like,
right.
I think this question should be best answered after Ahsoka season 2.
After Ahsoka, so wait till everything happens.
Yes, because Ahsoka season 2 has been like pitched as this bridge between Ahsoka season 1, which is already the culmination of some of the storylines that were in Mando and Boba Fett, and then the movie, So the Ahsoka season 2 is gonna be like breaching, like getting everything in place for then the big movie to come out, and that is also why I think the second season will come out after Mando and Grogu.
Okay.
And maybe they're like perpendicular to each other, and they don't like have anything to do with each other. So maybe they can even come out at the same time. But yes, I don't think that Ahsoka season 2 will be like the last thing we see before Filoni's movie.
Do you think Favreau will be on as like a producer role for that movie for sure?
Yeah. I think it's been announced.
I couldn't remember. I didn't know. I'll have to look that up later. I'd be surprised if he wasn't involved.
That would be like a huge red flag. Like if Favreau isn't.
Do you think it's like a heavily involved role, or do you think it's more of he's around, he's there, or do you think it's similar to like The Mandalorian, where they're working very closely together?
Yeah, it's gonna be like they're working closely together because I don't think Favreau will be as involved with Ahsoka season 2 because at least he's going to be focused on his movie, just like Filoni is not going to be as focused on Mando and Grogu. Like he does have an EP role on it, and he's going to consult. They have like offices next to each other, so yes, they will like talk to each other every day. But
they're getting sandwiches, at the cafeteria,
yeah, exactly.
and he just said, you know what? So I'm thinking about having a third galaxy in Ahsoka season 2. What do you think about that? He's like, let's have 5 galaxies.
Yeah. So like yes, but he will not be writing the 3 pages of script with those 5 galaxies. Yes, but then when the time for this movie gets here, like Favreau should be done with all things Mando and Grogu, and he should probably like, unless they have another like secret show that we don't know about, ready to go,
like Rangers of the New Republic.
Hopefully not.
Sorry, I had to bring that one back for just a moment. It had bring it back. Oh, yeah. Rangers in the Republic.
Rest yeah, I am not sad we didn't see that one.
I'm not either. Oh man! Any final thoughts on this Dave Filoni project, Heir to the Empire, before we get going?
I don't think so.
Feeling pretty good.
I think
obviously we're gonna have way more discuss on this.
That,
not much of a speculation at this point. Of course.
Yeah,
well, thank you, everyone. Go.
No, like we're gonna like learn a lot more in 1 year and a half or so. Like once Ahsoka season 2 gets going, like we might know.
And who knows, like what's gonna happen by the end of next Celebration and everything that comes together through that, and get at least get a Mando, because I think we're gonna get the Mando stuff and all of that, going. So we might have at least an idea of direction of story, because I'm curious because I've been curious in how big of a role like this Thrawn and the Ahsoka tie-ins are going to have in like the Mando movie, and I'm wondering if once we kind of get an idea of what that story is going to look like, could that give us a hint as to like what the overall like narrative is going to be for Filoni as well.
So knowing Lucasfilm, and I would honestly would do this as well, or would be okay with this, I wouldn't even mention the Filoni movie at Celebration next year. Like there's so much stuff to talk about that I wouldn't even mention it. But if they are going to mention it, something to drop the mic on would be like the title. Like say this movie titled whatever, it's going to come out December 2027.
Dave Filoni's 2027 Ahsoka, a Star Wars story.
Yeah, exactly.
There it is. Perfect. Well, thanks everyone for hopping on once again for part 3 of the movie discussion. I promise you, once we have actual information on more of these movies, we'll be back to talk more. And of course, about I just can't wait for information on like the Dawn of the Jedi movie that's gonna eventually come out as well. Thanks, Miguel, for hopping on doing these last 3 episodes with us. I think that people genuinely love talking about Star Wars movies, even though it feels still pretty far removed from when like Mando, Rey, and this movie are going to come out. I think there is like a lot of excitement for them. And we've talked in each of them about different timelines to look for, different things to be aware of. And I think that's important. And there is nothing that beats seeing a Star Wars movie in theaters. So absolutely. Thanks for hopping on. Appreciate it. Everyone, please like and subscribe to the channel. Tune in every Thursday night for Star Wars Newsnet Live. Check in on the Timeline show as well and other stuff we got going on at Star Wars Newsnet. For Light and Life, we will see you next time.